Hello, everyone. Want to look behind the scenes at the making of an animated short? I'm joined by my friend Alexander Lathem, and together we have recently created and finished a new animated short film, The Punctuation Pals, and we're here to talk about the behind the scenes process. Alex, do you want to introduce yourself and just a little bit of info about the short and what it is for those that may not know about it?
Yeah, the my name is Alexander Lathem. I almost said my name was Punctuation Pals, but no. My name is Alexander Lathem. I'm the writer and creator of the beloved and popular characters, the Punctuation Pals, as seen on TV. Um, and yeah, I mean, you go check it out now. By the way, if you haven't already, and I'm just really excited to be here and talk about it because there is a lengthy history to this that I just can't wait to get into.
It's been a long time, and I guess I'll say for anyone that wants the pitch, this is the story is it's about this group of Z tier supervillains, and they're these cartoons characters who exist in this city, and it's just about their antics as they're looking for a hero to fight, because they need someone to take them seriously. It's a lot of fun. It's a comedy. I recommend it to anyone watching. But that's the pitch. Feel free to if you can pitch it better, but
No, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I kind of forgot to give the pitch after you asked me to. And in retrospect, that was not the right play. But enough talking like a basketball coach. But no, yeah, I mean it's kind of a set in a world of heroes and villains, but it kind of focuses on, I guess, the dregs of a heroic society. Yeah, Z tier. It's a tier people don't even really think of, right? You typically think of F tier. That's how low they are. Um, and I guess it's just really interesting just because that was always the plot, right? Was it's following misadventures of these villains who just suck at their job basically. I mean they're really bad at it, and that's kind of the premise. And Looney Tune antics ensue. Um,
hmm
but I guess it's just interesting, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. But uh, the story was like a much wide, I want to say a little bit wider of a scope, and I think this was at the time, and this was years and years ago when we first started talking about this. Um,
do you remember how long ago it was? Because it all started with the character, right? Like it all started with like the Quizzler's character.
yeah,
I don't remember if this was already was it 2019? Was it 2020? Do you remember?
this was like before COVID, so this was 2019. I want to say maybe even 20 like 18, and I almost want to pull up
Yeah.
let me I want to see. I have some notes that I don't think these were like right when we talked about it, but basically
Never before seen behind the scenes material.
I mean this is let's see. I've got like a list of Punctuation Pals characters. So the last edit was in 2021, but I do remember this was like, I want to say pretty confidently it was 2019, because the story is, and I want to kind of get into that, is the story is Joe and I are at Arby's, as we often are, and we're having this discussion, and I don't know, somehow we start talking about Batman villains, and this was before Robert Pattinson's The Batman was even announced, like I'll say that much. And we started talking about the Riddler, and somehow some joke came about where I was like, "What if he was called the Diddler?" Um, and that was it was it's peak comedy, but then we started talking about this hypothetical Diddler and how he was just like, what if he was just like a loser version of Riddler? And this was all, the idea was it was all set in like Gotham. It was set in the DC universe. It was just like a Batmite almost version of the Riddler. And then the joke kind of started about him having a Punctuation Pals group, where he's a question mark and someone else is a comma and someone's an exclamation mark. And eventually, we really settled on the idea. This was like not very long after we talked about it, but we settled on this idea that like, oh, maybe we don't call him the Diddler. But, that was just an idea we suddenly had. And it was maybe a great idea. I'm sorry about those notifications. I silenced my
I forgive
phone.
you.
I did my part. But, I mean, long story short, because I'm kind of yapping on. But, there was just this idea of these, like, loser characters that owned, like, a bar. I know that was something we talked about, I think, like, at that Arby's. Was, like, what if they owned a bar and that was their secret lair? And I was just kind of obsessed with this idea of these not super villains, not even, like, regular villains, but just like, a small group that is like not even on the radar. And I like that idea, and that's where we kind of went and ran with it.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, and this was I mean, the script was all you. Like, I did a couple edits, and of course, it came from our conversation. But like, I want to make sure people know that like, it's like this was your story. Like the actual short film, was all your script, and that like has so much of you in it. And I guess I'd love to talk about some of, because yeah, that was all there from the first conversation. But the script has more to it, right? And there's this kind of like corporatization of like supervillain and or superhero teams as well. There's like there's like a minimum, what was it, a minimum hit requirement to remain on the roster or something. It's like it's like you have to be good enough or else, right? It's I don't know, I love that, right? There's recruitment centers, that's like they have to go to this like parks and like a parks and rec kind of building, and like interview people. Like I don't know, I'd love to get more into that because that perspective is like I feel like is really key to the core of this project as well.
Yeah, I appreciate. Yeah, because I wrote a 15-page script, and Joe thankfully like edited it down to something that was more manageable. And I think you edited it down to like 8 pages or something like that.
It might have been, I
And
don't remember how dramatic it was, but it was definitely, yeah, I wanted to get it under 10 minutes.
yeah, it was definitely like a good bit got cut. But I think it makes it. I understand why, obviously, and you know, ultimately, like anything to get it produced, right? I was so eager to kind of have something I completely wrote be put out there. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of set in this. I mean, there's an intro that was cut actually from the original script that is like this kind of classic, like, hero introduction where we see these like, Roach Man, this A tier villain going against like, these other super villains, and it's this whole monologue about, yeah, it's an intro that's setting up this world of, yeah, like heroes are intertwined within our society and they've become incredibly commercialized. And I want to say this was before I had watched the first season of The Boys too, so I was once again ahead of my time. But no, but like that was what I wanted to play around with, and I think that was partly because of, obviously, superheroes had been very commercialized at that point, and still are. And so I guess I was trying to write something a little bit subversive there, but like mainly focused in comedy. And so yeah, like that whole world, like you said, there's recruitment centers and there's quotas they have to meet, and it's something that is just like it's been commercialized. Like the whole concept of heroes and villains has been commercialized, and it's an industry now. And no matter if you're, A to Z, you have quotas, you make money off of it in some way. And there's remnants of that in the script, right? Like they mentioned the Period Man like plushie run, the Punctuation Pals plushie run, where they only sell one Period Man, and that's the thing. That's like something they had to do to try to bring in some extra income. And as we see, that did not really happen. But it was, yeah. I mean, I guess just it was a lot of fun. I think it's a world that actually I really want to return to maybe in someday, because I've never had a desire to write like a hero story or a story with superheroes, because I've always felt like there were stories that I kind of already were doing it for me. I love the concept of the DC universe, and I love X-Men, and I love like those characters and what they're about. So I was like, what do I have that's like new to say? What can I bring in that's like unique and not just like, oh, here's like my Superman clone, or here's my Batman clone, or here's, and that's what Punctuation Pals was my chance to, I think, create something new in that sphere.
I think so, and yeah, like I think all those concepts are definitely like I think they're still in the film. Maybe there's not that intro, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I like that. I feel like there's like they're still shown. Maybe we're not told exactly what the situation is, but like they also talk about like the roster and the quotas and the plushies, and so like that I feel like that's all still a part of that world. Um, I don't know. I don't know. Like I feel like the edits, my memory. I guess I want to hear if there's anything else that was cut out that you remember, because my memory was like I didn't think we compromised too much by cutting it down, but maybe there's something else I'm forgetting. There's a lot of lore that the news anchor talks about that's recorded and it's in the film. It's just in the background, so that's just not super obvious. But like it's still in the movie. It's just not like super audible. For example.
No, yeah, I actually like pulled up like the old script just to check, and yeah, it's actually 13 pages, so I think it was cut down
Ooh.
less. But yeah, like there is that intro, and that intro does set up like you have like a narrator character that I think was like throughout the whole script that like I'm like scrolling through and seeing like I think the narrator
Mm.
comes in at the very end as well. Um, and probably says something like if hopefully very funny. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. So the narrator at the end, and this is behind the scenes, folks, but he goes, "So that was the story of how the losers got a win, cheaply earned as it was. A happier ending than perhaps they deserved, but oh well. Thank you for listening regardless. Goodbye." Um, and the narrator, I'm not too sad about being cut out, but it was, he was there at the beginning, and he talks about the lore um, of the world. He sets it up, which I think is like you said. I think it's not necessary. I think we do show it, and I do think it's not a bad change. As much as I enjoyed writing that intro, but like you said, there's also lore. Like there's like a news broadcast um, that was going to be played, and I don't know
It
if
is
I ever.
played. Like it's in the film.
It's in the
It's just
film, but
not.
you
You
can't
can't
hear
hear
it.
it.
Dare I say? But no, that's the point, right? Like it was supposed to be in the background anyway. So it's one of those things where like there's a whole huge chunk of text because also it was set during the Cold War as well. That's another bit of lore. And I like to think maybe it's an alternate timeline or something where the Cold War keeps on going. But I mean, you kind of are missing out on the French hero L'Escargot. Uh,
Do you want to read the news? It's not cut content, but it is like. Do you want to read like what was the background? I wonder. I might be able to find the audio sample of the voice actors reading it too. I might be able to play that here as well if people want to hear it.
Yeah, I'll read yeah, because you hear that line, and this is why you don't spout witty banter before you
Defeat
defeat your
your
foe.
foe. In other news, recent attention has been focused on the border between France and the German Democratic Republic. An altercation occurred between the citizens belonging to the respective NATO and Warpact countries that escalated into mobs throwing wine and beer bottles at one another. Eventually, the French hero L'Escargot and the German hero Hans Red came to disperse the crowds, but not before exchanging ideological complaints. Hans Red called the Justice Team of European nations and their American counterpart slaves to large capitalist corporations, while L'Escargot called him a filthy red, which confused Hans, as that was his superhero name. The Justice Team of America condemned those statements and promised to send more heroes from the tiers A through D to support their European partners. This has caused a pause on many con meetups and has thrown the hero and villain economy into a speculative.
And then it just kind of rambles off. But I do really still like that because I was reading that now for the first time, or not the first time, but since I wrote it, really. But I do think that was like, yeah, it was just how tied up everything was, and there's that line about like the hero and villain economy being disrupted by like a political skirmish that's going on in the world. And that's how I really like that was how I really imagined these heroes and villains, is they're tied into this being that industry, like I said earlier.
Hmm. Well, I hadn't heard that since recording the voiceover. So that was really nice to hear it. Yeah, I mean, I think that has so much charm, and like that is in the movie. Like that's the anchor woman like reads that in the background of the bar scene. But yeah, it's just like it's something that the audience just doesn't know. Is there anything else in the script too that has been maybe lost in translation?
I think like certain scenes were longer. Like I'm looking now, and like the bar scene, there's a devastating loss for the audience. I should say is this really great joke where you know I guess it's in the middle of a senate or a conversation, but Madam Ampersand says we have a supercomputer just like Roachman, and Quizler goes, "It's literally the university laptop for Colonel Colin, one he forgets most of the time." And Colonel Colin looks at the camera and says, "I'm going back to get my film studies degree," and he gives like a thumbs up.
Oh.
And I guess that was like another thing too. Is like I think there's a little bit of background in each character. Like Colonel Cullen is a college student. But I think like I remember being kind of sad that it got cut. But then I was like, I think at the end of the day, I think just to produce it, because it was such a it was it was a mighty task to get this done. Joe is doing something he hasn't done ever before, which is a long form animation. So I totally understand why why it came to be. And honestly, I didn't help him at all with the animation. So I'm like, yeah, man, like whatever helps you do it. Like I wrote the script. I'm chilling. Like I did some voice acting.
You might have had some graphic design show up in the
Oh yeah,
like
that's true.
posters and
Yeah.
billboards, maybe. I'm not sure. I want to go through to see if there's anything.
There is the Iron City Window Factory.
Yes, you
Which
made
is
that. That's an asset that's in.
Yeah, which great visual gag. It's Chekhov's
I like
window
that.
pane factory, if you will.
I want to scroll through and see if there's any other billboards, because you made billboards that showed up in I think they showed up in the Night Terror short film.
Yeah, I did like
Um,
PetSmax, and I did like Max Tech Construction. I know I did a few, and like
yeah.
his like pharmaceutical branch. I know I did a few of those, and I think like obviously, I guess behind the scenes, in case you didn't know, we're using the model for Iron City in from Night Terror in Punctuation Pals.
Yeah, there's a lot of carryover. It's supposed to be the same. It's supposed to be the same world.
Oh yeah.
It's like the Night Terror shows up in a new costume here, which I guess just brings me to like um, just kind of like the input on the character design process, and because we did talk about animation, right? It's like that's something that like I try to make it collaborative and still like a creative collaboration, and like send off like character designs, and I mean this is a year ago now. If y'all want like a background on the timeline, my memory is you wrote the script. I mean, we said we talked about it years ago. You wrote the script for Punctuation Pals fall 2022, and then we did voiceover like the next spring and started animation in 2023, and then it's been finished now in 2024. So it's after there was the script, like we started moving, and it took a long time to finish. But that's kind of the general layout. But I do want to ask about like when we started work on visuals and just kind of like translating the idea into visuals and designing different characters. And is there anyone that looks different from the way you imagined? Were there any surprises? And just like as far as like creative decisions about how it was translated to the screen.
No, yeah. I mean, I think you're totally right. Like that is the timeline. And what was that last half of the question? I'm sorry, man. I'm being a bad host.
No, you're good. I wanted to ask. I mean, there's new character designs. These are, I came up with a lot of character designs for your characters, and I was, we did collaborate on that. But I guess there was also some iteration and changes made. I just wanted to ask about like, was there anything that surprised you in that kind of concept art phase? Was there anything about the character design and just like the visual translation of your short, even in general, maybe not just with character designs, but in general, like bringing the short to the screen? Was there anything about that process that was was there anything that felt smooth, like, oh yeah, that was the script and now I'm seeing it? Or was there anything, was there anything that surprised you as well?
No, that's a good question. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I want to say that like there were I had design recommendations. Like Quizler was very much just going to be. I mean, it was kind of like classic Riddler with the bowler hat, but it was a white and black color scheme, and it was a question mark. And I think we obviously ended up going for more of like a Jim Carrey Riddler. Like he's got the suit on, he's got the tights on, but he's also got the hat, right? So that's a nice. I like his design. And Madame Ampersand was one that, I don't think there was a lot of consistency between the team. Like they didn't share a color scheme like I remember, and I think they were very much hodgepodge. Like Madame Ampersand, I just really imagined with like a blue dress and like a red long sleeve shirt or like robe or something. I mean, kind of looked like girl Doctor Strange, basically. Was always my depiction. I don't really remember what I had in my mind for Period Man. He really might have just been a guy with a period T-shirt, and that was it. And I actually kind of want
He's
to.
not that anymore.
Yeah, he's
not just a
definitely
guy
not. Joe
anymore.
made him. He said, "I'm blue, Baba Dee, Baba Da." Was kind of Joe's.
I made him a freak of nature. I said he's period man. He's gonna be a man with a period for a head. It's
Yeah, just masterfully done.
genius.
But yeah, I mean, and other ones like I would say like exclamation marksman was one that you translated really well. I mean, I really was just imagining like kind of like the sniper from Team Fortress 2, very much,
Mm-hmm.
in his design and yeah, Colonel Colin was like the general from those general commercials. And then finally, Captain Kama was straight. Yeah, like I think you translated that design really well as well. So that was it. And Flying Squirrel Man and Dan Man are pretty accurate to what I envisioned as well. Um, and I think those are like all the characters. I mean, there's Dan Man's like crew, and I think I was very vague, and I was just like, I want them to have the same color scheme as Dan Man, which is white and rainbow. So every color, I guess, is his color scheme. But yeah, in Quotation Twins, I actually remember there's this scene in that hit movie. I mean, they show up in a couple scenes, but the hit movie Jingle All the Way, there's like Turbo Man, and he fights this villain who has these like little short dudes in these like Power Ranger esque outfits, and that's what I basically pitched to Joe. And I like that you gave them microwave heads. So yeah, I mean, I guess just like all this to say, I'm rambling, and I feel bad. I feel like this whole interview I've just rambled, but
Well, that's why we're doing it, so that you
yeah.
can ramble.
Um,
That's why I'm interviewing you.
no, I appreciate it. I mean, I guess just to me, what the big takeaway is that working on stuff is a lengthy process, and there's so much that you just don't get to see. There's so much that's left on the cutting room floor. And I mean, it's really cool because like things evolve, and I guess just talking about this, like you know, the core idea was always there, but you know what it focused on, because I think Flying Squirrel Man was there from the beginning, but I don't know if I really ever had the idea of like, well, what happens afterwards. But once I did it, it came really easily. It was a very quick script to write, from what I remember, and I guess just I mean, it took a while, and I guess I'm trying to give a speech to the audience and just say that the time will pass anyway, whether or not you do your project, and I encourage you to pursue it, because we had to make sacrifices, right? Stuff, like I said, had to be cut, and certain things, like, you know, didn't turn out the way we wanted them to, but it was worth it to make things, and we did it ourselves with our own bare hands. Joe was in the animation mines, just, you know, ripping the animation frames, you know, and I guess just that's my spiel to people who are listening, is that this was really fun. I had a great time. It's something that kind of at the time I think really reignited my interest in screenwriting, which I think it took a while for me to do it again, but with Pale Incident Report, you know, 0A was me getting back into screenwriting, and I was like, oh shoot, like I like doing this. I like screenwriting.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I definitely want to echo everything you said, and I feel so much of that as well. As the animator, you know, there's stuff where I definitely feel like the visuals. It was such a learning process. I'd never done a short like this before, but you know, and there's stuff where I'm like I feel so aware of the growth and all the things I've learned, and I'm like, ooh, I would want to do that differently now. But I'm so excited by this story. It's so much fun. I love the writing. I love the voice acting. I love that, you know, we created this world that now people can jump into, and it's a whole new place, with whole new characters, and it's a whole new story. And I think that that's totally communicated, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. I guess I would like to, you know, go ahead and spend a couple minutes before we go, just kind of talk about like the audio elements, because I'm proud of all of those. I love all the voice acting. We did a lot of voices, and I love the music. I'm proud of me. I composed the music, but I'm proud of it, is what I mean. But yeah, I guess I just want to ask you about like voice acting, because I know that it's your script and you lend your voice to a lot of it, and I just wanted to ask about like, you know, how that process was and what it was like to voice multiple characters.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it was cool because I guess just having that control over what they, you know, sound like, and the inflection was important. I know we recorded like all of our lines, like not the actress for Madam Ampersand and the News Woman, and also Dan Mann, um, and as well as like some of the other, like Jack Dominic, shout out to him, who did some of the Punctuation Pals characters. Um, we weren't together; those three weren't together, but me and Joe were, and it was, I was able to give notes and say, this is the, because we did a read through. And I was like, this is how I want this to sound. And I think it all just came together really well. And I'm thankful to everyone involved. Like, I mean, I feel like I'm just thanking people all the time, but I mean, this was like a dream come true. But no, I mean, I'm thankful for everyone involved, and if they're listening, I want them to know that, like, this is like, I've always wanted to make something like that. I feel like I had complete control over something and have it released. And I've written for Joe, and I've helped him out on the projects, and that's always great. And I've voice acted before, but to be a mainline actor in this, and to have written it all and be kind of a director almost, and say, this is how I want this done, this is how I want this framed, is awesome. I would say this is my first time really doing that and publishing it out to the world and having it have some success. And Pale Incident Report, I feel like, is the second time I've done that. So, yeah, I love all the sound. I love the soundtrack too. Please go listen to the soundtrack now. Especially love that ending track. I think everything is. Joe added some fun sound effects too. Like there's a laugh track when Period Man gets squashed by the anvil, which I can't honestly say. I don't remember if that was in the original script. I want to take credit for it.
I don't know if it was either.
I will take credit for it, but
yeah, I'll let you take credit for it because I don't remember.
No, I mean, just all of that is great, and I love everyone's contribution to it, their vocals, and I love the music and the sound effects, and I don't have much more to say. I'm giddy and I'm thankful.
That's how I feel. Yeah, I really loved how many people we were able to bring together, and yeah, and there was a lot of there was a lot of character acting for everyone. Even Jack, like was brought on to do a couple different voices, but they're all very different. I think he did Colonel Colin, and he did several other the heroes that were being interviewed as a part of the recruitment process. And like they all sound different, and I don't know. I know that I feel good about our voices as well, and like you do a lot of different characters. And Period Man, is different from the Quizler, who's different from Flying Squirrel Man. I hope that that's how people feel about, like, for me, the Quotation Twins versus Captain Comma. I think I did, and the Exclamation Marksman, and I don't know. Like, I'm happy with that. Like, I think it feels like a full team, and it feels like a bunch of different characters, and I think that was really fun. Like, to kind of like everyone kind of got to stretch their legs, and it's not just one character, but everyone kind of got to do a couple and try different things.
No, yeah, I love voice acting, and I love including voice actors, and yeah, like I feel like everyone is doing like 3 characters in this, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I love having people voice the character and want to voice my character, and so even if it means, like, I don't think we had the money at the time, because if they couldn't do multiple characters, I would have said, well, let's try and hire someone or find someone who's willing to do it. But, and if I had to do 10 out of 12 characters, I would have found a way, because I love the artistry of it, and I love doing it. And yeah, you're totally right. Like, I mean, I think we did a good job, in my opinion. When I watch it, sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I am Period Man. And that's merch for you right there. I am Period Man. A literally me character who's some of his lines got cut for sure. And I just, one day, I guess I want to frame this as one day my full vision for this project will be realized. We'll get Peter Jackson on it. We'll get Denis Villeneuve. I'm sorry, I don't know. He's French, so I can only do so much. But loved Blade Runner 2049 and Dune. But we'll get all these people on it, and my full 13-page script will see the light of day. And we'll get those cut Period Man lines to the folks, because we're recording this. Peek behind the curtain. I'm looking at the wrong camera. Oops. Peek behind the curtain is we're recording this a little bit before it releases, and I'm super curious how people are going to react to it, and what they like and all that, and if there's characters that they just are like, yeah, I love Period Man, or like, you know what, Quizler is so great, or Star Spangled Stew was robbed, and some people may say. But it's all very exciting, man. I feel like I'm not giving the most intelligent responses. But just know that I'm full of love and wonder for making things. And I hope those who are watching are too. Because there is nothing more beautiful and nothing more human than to create.
Amen. And I definitely want to like echo what you said earlier about like, the time will pass anyway. Punctuation Pals, it took a year just to animate. Um, Probably, I guess we'll say a year and a half from the time you finished the script to the time animation was done. Which in sometimes, in some ways that's not that long, but I know it felt like, a long process for me, and there were so many other things I was doing, and it was hard, and there was stuff that was tedious about animation. But I'm so glad that now it is done and we can share it with people. And even if there's things I would do differently now, it's this is a story that I guess like I'm proud of the story. I think it is a piece of storytelling. I think it's a piece of fantasy, and I hope it gets people's imaginations working. And Alex, you did such a great job with the script that I hope it gets people thinking about these things and commenting down below, because I do feel like it's one of those scripts where you can imagine the next episode in your head. Like you see these characters and you're like, oh, I feel like I know them. Like I can see more adventures with this cast, right? I feel like that's definitely something that people will feel after watching it. So I don't know. I think that's just really cool, and I'm excited to share it with people. And I do want to encourage anyone who's watching that wants to, work on their own projects. It's even if they're a little ambitious, go for it. See what happens. See what you learn. Just be willing to learn things along the way and do, just like have that growth mindset. And so I just want to encourage you that like just sometimes it just puts it takes having a little diligence, but go do that thing. Go make that thing. That's my advice.
100% to what Joe just said, and yeah, like when I wrote this, I didn't hold back. I wasn't really thinking about production, which maybe is not smart, right? And maybe that is something you want to be more aware of, and there's no problem with that. But I really just wrote what I wanted to write, and I was like, we'll fix it in post. We'll cut what we have to cut, and yeah, things get cut, and sometimes like you said, I think you animate stuff, and you're like, oh, I could have redone that, but that would be more months. I say just do it and throw caution to the wind, because I'd rather you be overly ambitious than underly ambitious. And thank you all for watching and listening. And if you have any questions, please feel free to type them out about the project. And I'm sure, I don't know if Joe will answer, but I will be scanning for the time being and trying to answer them. So thank you all so much for watching and listening, and have a wonderful life. That sounds threatening, but I mean it. Like, have a wonderful life,
Absolutely. I'll see y'all in the next video.
Peace.